Hi. Well, I guess it's time for this. It's the end of season 1 finally, and I think it's time to talk about the state of the game. The last time I really talked about the game was actually over a year ago at this point, back when they first revealed Tekken 8. And I can remember my thoughts on it being dismay, disappointment, fear, just about every synonym of disturbed that you can think of, because I'm a Soul Calibur player. And so when I saw a bunch of the systems from Soul Calibur moving into Tekken 8, I immediately got terrified. Because when I saw those systems, I thought, this isn't going to work in Tekken 8. And then when I saw how frequently you get them and how they were implemented, I couldn't help but think that the game was not going to be received well a month after release. And that's kind of the direction that the game's gone in. There have been no real updates. Generally, the game hasn't been received very well. There are a lot of glaring issues, and I want to talk about that stuff. Now, I haven't prepared a script or anything like that for this video. This is going to be mostly just me mumbling on about what I think about the game, but I do have some ideas on what I want to talk about, and I think it's important to have a discussion on the state of the game, the issues with the game, because if we don't say anything, then nothing's going to change. And I think that one of the biggest problems with the game isn't even the 50-50s and the constant pressure and aggression that a lot of people complain about, although that is a big problem. The biggest problem to me is that the game doesn't function. The game doesn't work the way that it's intended, and you can see this in various aspects of the game, which I'll get into in just a second. But the problem is that they shoehorned a bunch of mechanics into Tekken that don't really work with the game system, because they're trying to be innovative and change the game to be more modern, I suppose. But this is different than it was in, say, Tekken 4, because Tekken 4, they had a similar approach where they're trying to more modernize the game, and it obviously didn't work, but they were experimenting with new features. They were trying to be innovative. What Tekken 8 is doing is just taking mechanics from other games, shoving them into Tekken, and they don't really work. Again, I'm a Soul Calibur player. I play Soul Calibur 6. It's my main game. My main game isn't even Tekken. When Soul Calibur 7 comes out, I'm jumping off this ship. But I have an extensive history with the game. And the first time I saw the heat system, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, this is just Soul Charge. And that's how it works. But it's a very toned down, lazily implemented version of Soul Charge that doesn't work. And you can see just how strange the implementation is when you go back to the fact that you got 2 heat dashes for getting a heat engage. Do you remember that? Do you remember when they first showed off the game, you got 2 heat dashes for getting a heat engager? I can't even begin to understand how they would ever think that was a good idea. It's so beyond what I can imagine. And then on top of that, you could do heat dash into heat burst, into tailspin, into heat dash, into combo ender, and then wall extension, break the wall. Sorry, my hand got off the screen there. But do you remember when that was a thing you can do? Their original design intent was that when you hit a heat engager, you get 2 heat dashes, and the whole concept was that you break the chains when you do your heat dash, and they had to get rid of that because it was just fundamentally broken. And the direction that they've gone in with heat has been a fundamentally flawed one, and frankly, it's been lazy. It feels like there's been no proper QA testing. There hasn't been any sort of real feedback that's been given, because anyone can look at that system and how those mechanics work and see the problems with it, but they just keep chugging on ahead, and it's not even interesting how it works, because everything is designed around just forcing a 50-50. Even characters' heat mechanics are either incredibly lazily done or just centered around 50-50s. You look at Soul Charge and Soul Calibur, and the things that you do there aren't just about 50-50s. They are also about like improving your punishment, for example. And in Tekken, the only thing that changes is that you get like a punish that goes into heat dash, but if it's blocked, then it just becomes a plus on block mid launcher anyway. So that doesn't, it's some more examples from Soul Calibur as well. Enhancing your moves. So like Halmaru, for example, in Soul Calibur has his little projectile attack. But when he goes into heat, this projectile attack becomes a horizontal move. So it goes from you being able to sidestep it to not being able to sidestep it, but there's still counterplay to it because you can guard impact it. So there are still ways to be able to play around this stuff. And in Tekken, there's just not. When Xiao Yu goes into heat, for instance, does heat smash, goes into hypnosis, there's no counterplay to what you do after it. You either just like, you have to take the mid or the low. Some characters, yeah, they can punch parry the mid, sure, but then some can't. So it just feels scattered because there's no proper defensive mechanics to deal with these 50-50 mix-up situations. And it just goes against a lot of the core principles of a lot of fighting games. I mean, think of any fighting game. Think of anime fighting games where the game has a bunch of aggressive mechanics. Think of games like BlazBlue or Guilty Gear, for instance. All of those games have defensive mechanics to deal with the aggressive mechanics. Guilty Gear is the biggest example, the easiest example to cite because of Roman cancel. But there are still other examples in like BlazBlue, because you still have like push block and stuff like that to be able to deal with it. The only fighting game that I can think of that doesn't have any defensive mechanics to deal with the aggressive mechanics is DNF Duel. And we all know how that game went. Even Street Fighter with Drive Rush has drive parry, right? So by not giving any sort of universal defensive mechanics, it makes the aggressive mechanics way too overtuned to a point that they clearly didn't intend. And that is such a sign of bad game design when it was even stronger before. It really makes me scratch my head and wonder what they were thinking or what they were doing or what they were trying to do with testing this stuff. Because like I said, I can't imagine anyone who's competent at the game picking up this game with its system and thinking that it's okay. And it goes beyond just a simple balance problem with one or two characters. This is everywhere in the game. But it's not just about heat and 50-50s that are clearly like major oversight balance issues. There's also throws, for example. Do you remember when throws were punishes on armor and rage drop? And rage drops were -13, so the intended punish was that you just throw. You don't launch the rage art anymore, which was another thing that I just can't believe got through any sort of testing. But then on top of that, they had this whole idea of counter hit throws and throws being armor and stuff like that, and they didn't even think of the launching throws. So characters like Law just had a 12 frame launching punish on power crushes. How did that get through? And how did that get past any sort of testing? I don't understand. And then you also have the problem with the wall and the scaling and the combo damage. People in the closed network test were doing TOD combos with Jack that weren't even hard and impractical. I don't know how it got past QA testing. And then with the bug fixes they've been doing, every single one of them has had some sort of issue. And even with this change to wall scaling, because combo damage was way too high with the wall, it's still broken. It's just a band-aid over the issue, because now the problem you have is sometimes you get floor breaks or wall breaks, and those floor or wall breaks will cause you to do less damage than if you didn't have it. So you are getting punished for utilizing the floor break. The best example of this is Lydia hopkick in the Heaven and Earth 1. Because hopkick Heaven and Earth 1, down 1+2 is guaranteed, but Heaven and Earth 1 breaks the floor. And if you break the floor after hopkick, your tailspin is already used, and you don't really have any combo extenders or enders after that floor break. You are doing less damage if you break the floor. You are doing less damage with Lydia after hopkick if there is a floor break available. That's just not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to get punished for utilizing the floor break. And it's not just there too, but there are a ton of examples of floor break just not netting you to damage. And then the other problem is too, a lot of Oki setups require spikes. This is the screwdriver Borgor type thing, but a lot of characters have it, and it's very strong with them. And we're seeing that utilized more and more in the past couple of months. But because those require spikes and it breaks the floor, you can't do it if there's a floor break. But then the problem is, if you break the floor immediately, then you get less combo damage than if you didn't. But then if you do the wall carry, you don't get the Oki. And then if you do the wall carry and break the floor, then you're not at the wall after you break the floor. So you are always losing something after a floor break. And with the wall breaks as well, you break the wall on your side, and then you potentially aren't getting a full combo, or you at least aren't getting substantial enough damage to make it worth it. So you are just losing out on damage for interacting with the game's mechanics, which is weird. But then it also goes another step, because now if, say, you're round start on Lee's stage, I don't remember the name of it, but say you're round start on Lee's stage after the balcony break, and you and your opponent flip positions, and now you are able to break your wall with your opponent's back to it, right? It doesn't even matter at that point if you lose out on the damage, because just them not having the wall is better for you. So it creates this weird paradox where it's like, you don't want to use the wall in combos after the combo carry. You don't want to interact with it because you just lose out on damage. But then you do want to break it if you lose out on damage, if your opponent's back is to the wall that your back starts on round start. Because if you do that, then if your back gets to there and they wall spot you, then they don't get 100 damage combo that carries wall to wall. And then there's, there's other aspects of the game too that are just unhealthy, right? So these are just a couple of the problems with just situations in the game and mechanics in the game that just feel untested. I mean, think of the armored heating gauges as well. Those are a thing of the past at this point. Those are just gone. And it continues to make me question what testing has gone into the game. And it's not just at the beginning, it's throughout the year, because of some of the changes that they made to the walls and stuff, and how every time they try fixing bugs, the stuff that's broken. Azucena's running 3-2 change, hello? That move, when I saw it on the Tekken Talk, and if I can find the clip, I'll show the clip, but when I saw it on the Tekken Talk, the first thing I said was, isn't this a buff? Isn't this going to be harder to punish? I didn't even play the game. I didn't even play with the character. I saw it, and I saw, no, this is a buff. This is no way. This is just harder to punish now because of how far away she flies. And it turns out I was right. And if I can see that visually, just looking at it, not even testing it, how did it get past any testing? And this is one of the things that really makes me worried for the future of the game into season 2, because it seems like they're doing that classic Tekken thing where they're doubling down on everything. And that's really bad, because the 50-50s and the aggression and all of this stuff that we're talking about are a lot of people's main complaints with the game. It introduces a huge element of randomness to the game that's not healthy. It's also not fun for either player to be in these situations. Frequently, when I'm streaming and playing the game, even at God of Destruction level, I will play against other people at God of Destruction. So we're talking the top 1% of players in the world, and I won't look at the game for the entire game. I will be reading my chat while I basically let the game play itself, because that's just what the game devolves into, even at high level. It's just do your thing, do your mix-up into your mix-up, into your mix-up, into your mix-up, and if you hit it, then do the thing afterwards. If it gets blocked, then either do your other mix-up, or then you get punished, and then that's it. And then your opponent goes, and then you go, and then your opponent goes, and then you go, until someone dies. And ultimately, the problem is that the game just turns into a coin flip simulator. But the thing is, too, if you're the one that flips the coin, it's rigged. Because you have your low, of course, which is punishable most of the time unless you're like Hwoarang or something. But then you also have your mid, but it's a plus on block mid. So if they block the mid, then it goes into another 50-50 mix-up. That could go into another 50-50 mix-up. That could go into another 50-50 mix-up. And you see how this becomes a huge problem, and it's not fun for anyone because you're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and they have no intention of changing that, because like we see in season 2 already that they're going to allow you to do lows from crouch, which is doubling down on the problem, and no one's happy about it, but they're continuing to do it. They also just released a video. Evo had a video where they're talking about season 2 stuff, and they said in the video, now if you are in heat and you are on the ground, you will get 30% more recoverable health if you get hit while on the ground in heat, which is just mind-blowing that they would think that's a good idea. Because now what happens is when you're in heat, you can mindlessly just throw out your aggressive tools, and if the opponent is good at defense, sidesteps you, launches you, gets a combo, gets to the wall, gets Oki, you take less damage overall. So it allows you to just throw out more things for free, more 50-50s for free, and the defender gets less of a reward. So it's the exact opposite of what we're asking for. And then in that same video, they said, Harada said that you have veterans that are complaining about it, but then they're doing well in tournament, so why are they complaining about the mechanics? Basically, he's saying that the people who are winning tournaments are complaining about the mechanics because they're not having fun with it, but they're winning with those mechanics, so they shouldn't be complaining, and it's hypocritical, which is one of the most asinine things that I've ever heard from a game developer. It shocked me when I heard that, because even if you can interact with mechanics and utilize the mechanics well, that doesn't mean it's fun. But they have this idea that if you're just forcing these brain dead 50-50s all day, then it's fun. But the problem is, and sometimes that can be depending on the character and how they go about it, but the problem is it's the exact same for every single character in the game. It's been homogenized for every character in the game. Every character goes in the stance and does a 50-50 mix-up. Every character has the mid heat engager, the low, the plus on block high. Every character has the homing high that on block is +8 and on hit gives heat engager guaranteed. Every character has the mid heat engager that gives you a plus on block heat dash launcher that's +5 if you use your heat. And that's not fun, because you're just, no matter what character you play, no matter what situation you're in, you're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, whether you're on offense or defense. So when Harada and the rest of the team come around and say, but you're doing well, so why are you complaining? It not only rubs me the wrong way and feels frankly insulting that they would have that kind of attitude towards people who are not happy with the state of the game and just being completely dismissive, on top of making such an asinine and ridiculous comment like that. But then the other problem is that it shows to me that they clearly don't care. They have this outward facing look of how they want to address these problems, but in reality, they don't care. If that's the kind of thing that they're going to say to the public in a video, not even in a live stream, but in a video, then imagine the things that they're saying internally the development team is, the balance team is. If that's how they feel about the opinions of veteran players, of pro players, of people that are topping in tournaments, or just even in general, then imagine how they feel about what they're saying, like, internally when they're trying to balance the game or fix things in the game. It's something that it makes me worried, frankly. And then Harada also goes in that same video and says and talks about how people can't look at bouncing as a binary thing, like either you change this or you don't. But then he also references what he's seen as a binary thing, where if we fix the things that veterans are complaining about, then it makes the people that don't like or do like the state of Tekken or start with Tekken enjoy the game less, which is not true. Because as an example, oh god, something just popped up on my screen here while I was recording. Oh my god. But as an example, I don't play a lot of 2D fighting games, right? But one game that I do like is Melty Blood Type Lumina. But a lot of Type Lumina players do not like that game because of various reasons, including the shield system. But the thing is that I play that game when I played it like once a week, once or twice a week. I didn't really know how the game was. I just went in there, messed around with it, and left. And I thought the core concept was fine. And the things that the higher level Melty Blood players are complaining about don't matter to me because I don't know the game well enough. And if anything, it's something that them not changing that dissuades me from wanting to play the game, because I know that if I invested time into it, the game has a lot of issues. I can have fun with the game, I can enjoy the game while still recognizing it has problems. So this idea that they're trying to push, that if we address the problems that veterans have who are dissatisfied with the game and make them more satisfied, it's going to make people who enjoy the game right now for what it is less satisfied, is ridiculous. And it shows just how out of touch they are with not only the game and the player base, but just with reality. I'm sure that there are a ton of people that enjoy the game right now that would be more than happy to see changes to how the 50-50s work. You can have people that enjoy the game now that have the same complaints as veteran players do. It's not a binary thing. It's not like fixing things for one group of players is going to make another group of players less satisfied with the game. That's just not true. And not only is it frustrating, but it makes me really worried for how the future of this game is going to be if that's the ideas and rhetoric that they're trying to pass around. It almost to me seems like instead of listening to what we're saying and trying to actually improve the game and instead of trying to address concerns, they're instead putting their effort into finding people who go against that narrative, citing them and saying, see, game's great, we don't need to change it. And that's not healthy. There are a lot of things that aren't healthy about this game. There is, of course, the 50-50s. There's the general, like, patch health of the game, how the game's been updated. But then there's also the communication. This is a common problem with Bandai Namco, but there has been pretty much no communication on anything since the start of the game. And the worst part is, I don't think it was intentional to not communicate with anything with us. This is just how Bandai Namco works. But you can see us with the Battle Pass, the Tekken Shop, the lack of patches, where they didn't say anything until, like, almost towards the end of the season. Like, I don't know exactly when, but, like, August, when they said, yeah, there are going to be no more patches. And that has been another major gripe, because we not only should know, but we deserve to know what's going on with the game. You know, a lot of people dedicate a lot to this game. A lot of people love the series and want to continue playing the game and want to know what's going on. People want to know why there aren't any patches. People want to know what the future of the game looks like, and they have just been not saying anything since the beginning. No updates, no information, and that's something that tells me that they're not confident in their product. Because otherwise, why wouldn't they be telling us what's going on? And with the amount of changes that we're seeing in Season 2, clearly they've seen that there are problems as well. And what I hope for is that in Season 2, those changes actually amount to something. But based on what we've seen throughout this past year, what we're seeing with like the Tekken talks, what we're seeing with new characters, common theme of them is just having a bunch of stance 50-50s, them changing the he engages to have the from crouch lows, the system change that we've already seen. It leaves me doubtful, and it leaves me scared for what the future of this game is going to be. When we look back at Tekken 7, for example, we saw a similar thing where a lot of people were upset about the state of the game, the balancing, the combo damage, the wall carry. And then in Season 3, they doubled down on that. People were upset throughout the entirety of Tekken 7 with rage drives. And then they turned those into heat smashes in Tekken 8, where you can use them at will for free 50-50s. And so Bandai Namco has a history of, at least the Tekken team, not the Soul Calibur team. Soul Calibur has actually been fantastic in addressing players' concerns and fixing those in the game. And even though the game only lasted for 2 seasons, you can see that time and time again in the patch notes, how much they cared about the community and their feedback, tried implementing that, and tried finding a good balance between what the high-level players were complaining about or were concerned about and what the low-level players enjoyed. There's always a balance there. Tekken, it feels like, in stark contrast to that, is not taking this feedback into consideration. They have their vision of the game, they have what they want the game to be, and that's what they're going to continue to push for. And that's more or less what they said in that evil interview for Season 2, that they're not going to back down from the aggressive gameplay style because they believe it's fun. It doesn't matter if a lot of people in the community say that it's not fun. It doesn't matter if what to me seems like a majority of people, based on my own personal experience, not just like online on Twitter, but based on what people have said out to me in real life at events. If they're not willing to address those problems and listen to what people say, then there are going to be more and more people that become jaded with the game and just don't want to play it anymore. One of the reasons why Soul Calibur 6 has such a loving and devoted community even to this day, even though it stopped 5 years ago, is because of how much Project Soul cared about us, cared about the community, and the community responded to that. Soul Calibur 6, when COVID happened, had by far the most online tournaments of any fighting game at the time. They came out, the community for Soul Calibur 6 came out swinging right after COVID. They wanted to have a tournament presence. They wanted to keep events going, and they showed the love and support for the game that it deserves after everything that went through. Tekken isn't getting that. Tekken 8 has completely thrown out all of the community goodwill. They haven't communicated with us. They haven't addressed the problems that we have with the game. And it feels to me like they're not going to in the future. They might put a few small things or a few band-aids, but it feels like that they don't really care what we have to say, and they're gonna keep pushing forward with what they want the game to look like instead of what we would like the game to look like and what we would see as being a good Tekken game. You know, just to give you an anecdote here at the end, I've obviously been playing Tekken since I was 5. I've been playing Tekken practically my whole life. And in previous Tekken games, I played pretty much every character in the game. That's why my name is Sesujin, because it's a mix of my name, Seth, and Mokujin. And I made this game, I changed my name to that before Tekken 8 came out. But in Tekken 8, I don't want to play the characters. I don't want to play the game. And it's because of not only the game's mechanics, but because of how poorly designed the game is at its core, and how homogenized and boring all of the characters are in the game. Not even my old main Tekken 7 Elisa I play anymore because I just think she's boring. You just do the same thing over and over and over again. The characters that I play in Tekken 8 are Yoshimitsu and Lydia, and the reason why is because they feel like they're not playing Tekken. Yoshimitsu feels like a Soul Calibur character. He feels like he actually has defensive mechanics with flash and spin. Even if we have problems with those moves, it adds a layer to the game mechanics and to your defense that is very valuable and important that Tekken 8 is sorely missing. In Lydia's case, the way that she approaches neutral actually requires thought. You don't just go in the stance and get free 50-50s. The risk reward is there, and you have to think about the mental game. You have to think about how you approach a neutral. You have to think about how your opponent is approaching situations. You can't just hit buttons and then get free mix-ups. There's always something to do, and there's always something to think about. If I play almost any other character in the game, that's just not how it is with those characters. And that is unfortunately how Tekken 8 is. So all I can do at this point is cross my fingers and hope that in less than a week's time from when this video comes out, that they're going to fix all of those issues. And I desperately hope that my thoughts on Season 2 of Tekken 8 are wrong. I hope that they actually do listen to us. I hope that they tune down the 50-50s. I hope that the changes are actually substantial instead of just being a band-aid that they're putting across some of the game, but the large fundamental flaws of the game are still there. If they do manage to turn it around in Season 2, then I think everyone's going to be happy. This game is going to have great success. It's going to be extremely well received. People are going to be celebrating in the streets. But this is a big and pivotal moment in Tekken 8's history. This is the biggest moment that we're going to see in not just Tekken 8, but perhaps the entirety of the Tekken franchise. It's not like Tekken is too big of a game to fail. We saw how Tekken Tag 2 was, and based on what I've seen, if they don't get this right, then we might be going in that direction. And it's not going to crash and burn immediately, but it's going to slowly progress over the years. And I desperately hope it doesn't go that way, because this game has a great foundation. It has great ideas, and in general, it really could be the greatest Tekken game of all time. It's just, it's not there yet.